Okay, super. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Village of Cottage Grove Plan Commission meeting on Wednesday, January 11th at 6:30 p.m. We are holding this in the Village Hall as well as over Zoom. The Zoom link is at the top of the agenda. There's also an audio call-in number with an associated meeting ID as well at the top of the agenda. We do have a quorum. The agenda was properly posted. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we have public appearances. This is public's opportunity to speak. If there is someone from the public who wishes to speak, we just ask that you share your name, your address, your municipality, and hold your comments to no more than 3 minutes, just in case we have a number of folks who would like to speak. With that, I will be quiet, and anybody in the room or on Zoom can feel free to pipe up. All right, then moving on, looking at to discuss and consider our meeting minutes for our Plan Commission meeting held on December 14th. Any questions, comments, edits regarding the meeting minutes as presented, or consideration for motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Thank you, Alex. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Troy. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next, then, we'll open a public hearing. This is a public's opportunity to provide input on the application from One Community Bank for a conditional use permit to allow a drive-through lanes at a proposed bank project located on parcel 0711-041-2210-1 on Landmark Drive in the Commerce Park. So with that, anybody from, we can start with presentations, I guess.
Yeah, technically the hearing's for the conditional use permit, but I think it's easier to just talk about the whole project together and then take the action items separate. So Jeff, if you want to come up and kick things off.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I don't believe the microphone is on.
Yeah, we make some switch on that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Troy.
I'm assuming you don't want me to say all that over again, or should I?
No, I think we're good. We've got it recorded for the public.
They're excited to be here, Troy.
Yes.
Thanks, Troy.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. And so I'm Ryan Frank. I'm project architect with OPN Architects, and we just thought we'd give a brief kind of presentation just to outline, the project, where it stands, kind of what the intent is. There's a lot of supplemental information that we've provided for the conditional use as well as the site plan applications. So there's a lot of additional information there, but I just wanted to kind of go high level over the site plan and the building just to give an overview. So hopefully I am sharing screen and you can see here our Cottage Grove Plan Commission meeting. As just an overview for anybody not familiar with it, as we mentioned, this is at 1565 Landmark Drive. This is the parcel right adjacent to the new kind of retail development to the south where Dunkin' Donuts will be, and then Jimmy John's to the north. So it faces Landmark Drive, the kind of prime artery into Cottage Grove Road, or into Cottage Grove from Interstate 94. And so it's a really prominent site. It's got great visibility, great access, and so it's a perfect spot for the financial institution of one community bank to make their presence here in Cottage Grove. As we move into the site plan, there is no access from Highway N, so the main access to the site is from Landmark Drive. There's a long drive and procession into the building, or into the site. And as you can see, the building is actually kind of oriented and kind of kicked at an angle with the idea that we have the main entry on the north side of the building, we have the drive-up teller lane on the south, and we really want to make the entry to the building visible from Landmark Drive. So as you come from Landmark Drive, all visitors and guests are able to get a glimpse of that entry under this nice canopy. As well as by kicking it, we still keep the prominent facade, the west facade facing Highway N as a really visible and attractive facade that highlights the bank and makes it really a beacon for the area and the park. We think this is going to be a great addition to the site. In general, parking for visitors is to the north, and to the south is staff parking, access to the drive-up lane, as well as access to a remote ITM lane. There also is a planned future ITM lane that would be adjacent to the current ITM lane that's planned. In this configuration, we really opened up the site to the west so that we're kind of minimizing paving between the building and the street, minimizing parking there, minimizing the drive-up lane, kind of circumventing the entire site, and really letting the view from Highway N be of the building, be of the site, let landscaping kind of be exposed, and really just be a great view coming in and out of Cottage Grove. We have our main utilities coming in from Landmark, and they are all kind of trying to be tucked along the south side of the building. You'll see in our perspectives and visuals that we're trying to conceal all of that behind a visual screen that provides a barrier between the teller lanes and the views from Highway N. And that's a screen that's going to be kind of an activated signage display as well. And so we're kind of integrating that into the building design. We've talked through kind of landscaping, and we're creating a landscaping palette that's very complementary of the park, of native plantings, and also complementary to the building palette itself. So we're working with JSD, and Kevin is also on the call as part of the landscaping and civil team to help answer any questions that we have on that aspect of the design. But in general, we're trying to really make the building stand out from some of the other buildings in the park, and make sure that it's very approachable and that it feels very inviting for all of the clients coming in into the building. So as you can see, there's a lot of kind of heavily landscaped area between the parking lot and the building entry, where patrons are able to kind of walk through that landscaped zone, as well as providing buffer to some of the adjacent properties and utilities on the site. In general, the building floor plan, this is oriented kind of so north is to the right. The main entry then comes in under a canopy, and you enter into this large grand lobby that's kind of a square in form, and it has a pop-up that's exposed on the exterior of the building. But one community bank is all about providing service, and this is a new opportunity to expand that in Cottage Grove. And so as any patron enters, they're fully surrounded by offices and service. And so that's the whole idea, is that anybody that enters is kind of greeted with somebody that they will know. Everything in yellow and green is more of teller support space, and that's kind of all more back of house. Our material palette is very simple. It's meant to be timeless. It's meant to stand to be a 50, 100-year building and kind of highlight the commitment that OCB has to the community. Integrating terracotta and stone as the main building material with lots of transparency, natural light, just keeping the building very open. We also have then warm accents of an aluminum wood look soffit and batten system. So as we look at just the general elevations, anything in kind of this blue-green is our glass. Anything that's kind of the buff color is our terracotta and stone material. And then we have accents, just kind of keeping it really minimal of the kind of the white metal panel accents of the clerestory and the horizontal kind of band of the roof line around the building. So this is the north elevation, the main view as you enter from the parking lot into the entry. And then the east and west elevation, the east is here, the west is on this side. These are basically mirrors of each other. Those are the main facades that faced Highway N and then Landmark as you enter. So those are the main facades for signage. And then along the south is where we're integrating the aluminum wood batten system to kind of screen the teller lines, screen utilities, screen condensers, and then also incorporate signage and branding into that as an element. And then I'll just take a couple views around the building just so you can get an idea of how that fits on the site. Now we're on Highway N, kind of heading north, looking out across the site. You can see the covered canopy of the entry. This is kind of from the south, looking towards the building, seeing the wood batten system, screening the teller line and the utilities. You can see how it might be integrated with lighting, as well as like kind of the way we're minimally treating the signage and branding into it. It's not meant to be a loud sign, but just kind of be really well integrated into that system. This is your then approach from Landmark Drive. Again, as I mentioned, we're right on access to the corner of the building so that you can see the main entry as well as see access to the drive-up lanes and see the ITM lanes to the left. So everything is very visible as you kind of come into the site. Kind of coming in closer, you see the material palette, the transparency into the building and into the offices, the opportunities for signage, as well as the pop-up of the clerestory. We're wrapping then around the south side, again, seeing kind of the view from Highway N during the day. And again, the wood soffit that's under the canopy at the entry is also under the canopy of the drive lanes and forms kind of like that front porch, that aspect of coming out, greeting patrons, as well as opportunities for photos and opportunities with the community. And again, that main entry looking into the building, and you get the transparency right into the lobby right there from the north. So that's just like a brief overview of what we've presented. We've presented a lot of other documentation and support to highlight the project. And so with that, we have any questions. And again, I mentioned Kevin Yeska with JSD is on the call as well for opening up any additional civil landscape questions. We did receive the items from Strand that were shared that we will be looking at and incorporating for feedback as well.
We'll go through staff and then we'll open up to public in case there's.
I guess first of all, just an overall comment. I mean, this is not just a cookie cutter design that they slap down everywhere they go. I think the OCB team really made an effort to understand the site and community, and that's really borne out in the design. So that's great to see. This did go to the ARC this morning, and that was approved there with no serious concerns. So we'd recommend approval of the site plan with just a few conditions. The first one, just more of a reminder that a site plan approval is valid for 2 years. So if that ITM lane is added after that window, you may have to come back for a site plan amendment. The Commerce Park covenants have a regulation that caps the amount of glazing on a building at 30%. The ARC was willing to waive that. I think that's really there to protect against these kind of 80s style glass boxes that don't age very well. This is not that kind of building. There's a lot of screening with the columns and the screen walls and things like that. So the ARC had no concern about that, and I didn't either. The Commerce Park also requires a fire sprinkler system. The ARC has kind of as a rule waived that when it wasn't otherwise required by the state building codes. That's our understanding. It's not required for this building, so the ARC was okay with waiving that. Fourth, just a reminder that there can't be any unscreened mechanical equipment on the roof, but it sounds like that's not the intention to put any up there anyway. And then finally, just a reminder that sign permits are a separate process. You'll have to apply for those. As far as the conditional use permit, no real conditions. Again, just kind of a reminder that we would include the extra ITM lane in the conditional use permit approval, so you would not have to get that amended, just the site plan. Josh had some conditions in his report.
Yeah, we also had some conditions. I'm not going to really read through all of them in the report. A lot of them are minor, easy things to, I think, address as part of your guys' overall plan. I just will point a few things out, just some of the bigger things that we noticed. Just so everybody knows that, this is going to take part of the Landmark Drive median out. So there's a median in there now. There's a portion of that that will be cut out as it, and we have some questions in there about how that's going to be done. I had one thing in there about removing a tree in the forestry department. At the time we were writing this, we didn't actually have that figured out, but they do not want the tree, so you don't have to worry about that tree. That tree can go away. Couple other comments. We obviously need the fire truck turning templates. The fire district will want to see those too, and make sure that the ladder truck can get in and other trucks can get in and out of the facilities.
And jump in there, Josh. There was a meeting with the chief, and he did kind of,
Did he?
I think, signed off on it.
Okay,
I may
okay.
have not seen the actual radii on the map, but I think there's a general
Yeah, I don't think it was
Yes.
on our drawings, but we did have a preliminary conversation with the fire chief just to ensure that, because we weren't providing, a full loop.
Yep.
That making sure a Y configuration would be acceptable.
be
and
acceptable.
Yep, and so we did talk through that. It just, it was not indicated in our
Yep.
drawing, so we can add that.
Yep, nope, I think, like I said, I don't think it's a concern, just to show that it works. There's a little bit of discussion I have in here about some sanitary laterals, the connection of how you're connecting into the main down in the road, and it's gonna cross, some of your connections kind of cross into lot 2 just so slightly. It can be adjusted so they're out of lot 2, just so take a little bit more of a connection and maybe another manhole right at your drive access point, just so we get them out of that other parcel as part of the connection. One thing I did want to point out just for the whole committee is I usually talk about stormwater and erosion control, and as you know, as part of the Commerce Park, regional detention was created for both their peak discharge rate control and water quality treatment, so for your sediments. That was created for the park entirely assuming that each site would be no more than 85% impervious. So we always check, well, how impervious is their site? How much coverage do they have on their site with drive and building space? And this site only has 48%, so they're well below that threshold, which is good. One other important thing to note is that all sites typically have this infiltration requirement. We've had it before in the Commerce Park where individually they have to put a spot on their site where they can achieve infiltration of storm events for groundwater, to put the groundwater back into the ground. In this case, they're within 400 feet, the whole site is, of the village well. So that is something that will not be allowed and was totally waived as part of their requirement. So you won't see something like that out on this site after the fact. The only other thing we had some for storm sewer, and I think it will be cleaned up, is it looked like it was maybe sized or modeled incorrectly, but I think it's a pretty easy fix on the engineer's end, and I don't see a problem with getting it sized right and working with their engineering team as part of that. A little bit on lighting levels. There's a little bit of spillover on the Landmark Drive, and then there's a little bit too little of light. You don't quite meet the minimum foot candles within the lot in a couple spots. So again, something I think can be adjusted, but just something that's in our comments. Other than that, like Aaron said, I fully believe with these conditions and working with their team that it's very achievable.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Josh. As this is the public hearing portion of it, with those presentations, and thank you both, we'll open it up to the public. And again, as a reminder, just share your name, your address, your municipality, and hold your comments to no more than 3 minutes in case we have a number of folks who would like to speak. So with that, I'll open it up to the public, either in the room or on the Zoom. All right, then we'll close the public hearing portion and move on to discuss and consider this application from One Community Bank with the commission. So with that, anybody have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Alex, if you're
Okay.
ready.
A couple questions. That fancy lane, that drive lane that you're putting in, is that done at other locations like that? Like, what is the, I guess, I don't necessarily have a problem with that, I just don't understand its purpose. And then also it's that figure that, crisscross to get out. Is that typical? Have you done this elsewhere and it's effective?
We've done it in some instances, and in some instances, the drive lane would fully circulate entirely around the building, or every site is unique in where its entry point is. A lot of times with financial institutions, you'll also find that you can have two entry points into the site where you might get an entry from two sides, allowing you to not have to cross paths necessarily with vehicles as they enter. So I think just due to the single drive in from Landmark being so long and coming in where it comes into our site is directly in the middle, you kind of have to circle in one direction or the other, and there is just naturally that opportunity for crossing traffic. We positioned it in a way so that when cars are going into the drive lane and queuing, they're not queuing and backing up onto the drive lane itself. We did explore options where there was the drive lane on the north side of the building, and we didn't have enough capacity to really fit, a line of 3 or 4 or more cars without it impeding on the drive itself. So positioning it on the south allowed us to have a queuing lane.
It's an exit lane.
What's that?
It's an exit lane, as marked right now. I don't understand what you mean a queuing lane. The current provision is leaving the bank. So it's not a queue lane.
I guess I'm thinking as you enter into the lane. Are you talking about as you exit the lane?
Can we bring it back?
Yeah, you want to bring the
Share your
drawing up?
screen.
I just don't
The site might help. Yeah.
you get in through the driveway, you pass the parked cars, you get into the, you go into the drive-through, and then to exit, you crisscross the drive lane and then pop out that driveway to the west side.
Right.
So I just didn't know, like, is that normal? Because you're gonna crisscross, it's a figure eight, configure eight. I mean, it makes sense to me if it was a queue into the drive-through. That sort of makes more logic
So
to me,
into the drive lane, you come this way.
right? That's
So-
fine. And then when you exit the drive-through, you gotta crisscross, you drive south and then out that other,
No.
what's
This is a
the,
2-lane.
what's,
The way the arrows are
So-
on the bottom going to the.
Right.
what's the purpose of that road?
That
That is
other
for
one's
that-
like a ATM or whatever.
It's a remote ITM. So that would be like it's like an automated teller where.
There you go.
In
There was an
addition to, like-
acronym and it wasn't, I didn't get
Yeah,
that.
so like a ATM, this is where you can actually go and meet with a teller basically at that station. So think of it as an ATM.
That's more,
But that's just a single-use lane. But here is
it's not an exit, I get it.
Yeah.
But the ITM offers it's remotely serviced by people at another location, so you see someone on.
Yep.
Okay.
Now it's clear. It looked to me, it was like, hey, is this, okay.
Yeah. And then
fixed-
just
you
for
fixed
more
me.
for more clear.
No, it's,
Yeah, because if they're going
well,
all the way down and then you're going that way.
well, you would come south and either go into the people, or you would go to the west for the automated
But if
system.
somebody's coming down to go there, you are gonna have, there will be crisscross.
There could be. But it makes more sense that it's a automated lane than an exit lane. That's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know what the acronym was. You're using fancy letters and.
Sure. Naturally, this is
Yeah,
like the intersection. But there is visibility from when you're waiting there to kind of hopefully see traffic.
That makes more sense, thanks.
Okay.
And then I guess my only other question is there any intention, any plans for like renewables, solar panels with you're doing
We don't
some
have
water
that
heat?
currently
or-
integrated
okay.
into the building. No.
Okay. My only questions. Thanks, John.
They do have a connection to the bike path up in front, though. You can see that. So another way to get to the bank if you choose to walk or ride.
Will there be is it just back?
Jim, you don't have your mic on.
I'm good. I just wanna see it.
Other questions from commission members? I think it's going to be a wonderful addition for those that need financial services to the community. Another option. So,
Thank you, John.
very nice.
Thank you.
If there are any other comments or questions, is discuss and consider.
I would make a motion to approve the application from One Community Bank for a conditional use permit to allow drive-through lanes at a proposed bank location located on parcel 0711-041-2210-1 on Landmark Drive in the Commerce Park with staff conditions.
All right, thank you, Heidi. Is there a second? I didn't hear who shouted out. Was that Troy or Fred?
That would be me, yeah.
All right, thank you, Troy. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next, then, we have a discuss and consider for the application of One Community Bank for the approval of a site plan to construct an approximately 6,000 square foot bank on the parcel 0711-041-2210-1 on Landmark Drive in the Commerce Park. So, any questions from commission members regarding that?
Since my mic's still on, I will make a motion to approve the application from One Community Bank for approval of a site plan to construct an approximately 6,000 square foot bank on parcel 0711-041-2210-1 on Landmark Drive in the Commerce Park with staff conditions.
All right, thank you, Heidi. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kim. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right, thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
See you next week. Good job.
Yep, thank you all very much. We appreciate it.
And you have a crew on the Zoom, too. That's great. All right, next then we have a discuss and consider the application for the Zilber Property Group for the approval of precise implementation plan on approximately 70-acre light industrial development on parcel 0811-332-8501-1 and parcel 0811-332-8072-1 and parcel 0811-312-8004-1, and finally, parcel 801-332-8182-1. This is at 4953 County Highway N, and we have all of you here again. Chelsea, you going to lead us off, or how's this going to work? Okay.
Chad, is the mic on?
There we go.
All right. Well, thank you to having us again. My name is Chad Novice, and I'm with the Zilber Property Group. As you've identified, I'm flanked on my left by Chelsea Couette from Zilber as well. And then on my right is Adam Arts from Pinnacle Engineering Group, our civil engineer for the project. So you've seen this project a couple of times in various forms already. We do have several items for approval today, and we can just walk through them. We'll do this quickly on the overall presentation so as not to be redundant from other presentations. But in general, you can see the site here, again, located off of Highway N. And you're familiar with this location. The overall development plan, which as conceptually presented before, represents 4 buildings totaling about 700,000 square feet for industrial development purposes. 2 specific projects that are contemplated here as the first to be constructed are 2 twin, approximately 110,000 square foot industrial buildings located on the western end of the park. And then as well, I think as part of this, we have a CSM that's being approved as well. And you'll note that there is the overall site is carving out a 2-acre homestead parcel, which is the current owners that reside on the larger site. They wish to continue living there, so we've made accommodations to carve that parcel out of the overall development to facilitate their, continued residence. The buildings themselves, you can see here, we've probably shown some conceptual industrial development elevations and renderings before. These are the specific projects that we've submitted and have been under review.
It says I'm sharing.
There we go.
Oh. Well, we want to rewind a little bit visually?
Hold on, let's get this.
Maybe do that real quick, yeah.
Quick one, all right. Call that a practice run. I'll try to do better the second time. I didn't feel it really, but
It's still not syncing up, unfortunately. It says I'm connected.
It's like a delay or something.
Yeah, because I'm going here.
we'll have to
Can I hand off a USB, or would that,
Do you have a PDF of it?
I do,
That would, you could just pull that, that'd probably be,
maybe try the PDF
Quicker,
version?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've got that too, thank you. It was almost smooth sailing.
close.
Close. All right, let's start share.
If it's the hardest part of the project, this is going to be easy.
No.
There we go, PDF. All right, is it here? There we go. Let's try this. A little bit of a delay, but better. No,
Teed up, all right.
all right.
It's a little too soon to talk about football analogies for us emotionally, but a slight holding penalty, we'll walk it back and replay the down. Again, we had talked about the site, maybe we'll just do a quick, go back to the beginning. Would that be permissible? Good. So we talked about the site outline, again, the 2-acre parcel that's carved out to accommodate the residents. See it visually there, the overall plan, but we're really diving in today to the actual two first proposed buildings, again, the industrial, and then I think the important part is the aesthetics of the properties, and these are the actual detailed designs that have been submitted and have been under review by staff. And just another representation kind of zoomed in the entrance. This is the boring part of these buildings. They are rectangles, and they have walls and roofs. We do our best, but that's the nature of them. And again, just some more representative imagery of the actual to-be constructed project. Now, Adam, to my right, would disagree with me. I'd say this is the less interesting portion of it, but this is the infrastructure and civil analysis and design for it, ponds, roads, pipes, and so forth.
That's all we have. If there's any questions or detail that we want to go into, we can bring those up again.
Great. We got a lot of thoughtful comments from staff and their consultants. I don't know if there's anything that we want to talk about in particular, or just we'll be quiet and listen to questions and other staff presentations.
Aaron, do you want to start? I know you've already covered this for the commission, but if there's anything else new and exciting that you want to share? Or?
Yeah, so a lot of the changes that happened between the GDP and the PIP are more engineering based, so Josh probably has more to say than I do. A lot of my comments, at least the first 6 or 7, are basically repeats of the GDP, just kind of reminders about different tasks that are outstanding. The next couple, just kind of record some of the things we talked about at the GDP level, just making sure the residents immediately to the north always maintains its access when you're rebuilding Faber Road. We talked a little bit before the meeting about looking into shifting the bike path to the south side of Faber Road so it's not crossing all the driveways. So I think the engineers will kind of take a look and see if that's feasible or not. I think we talked about last time, the property owner to the north wants to ensure they have access to their fields with the tractors, so just making sure we have a curb cut kind of arranged where he needs it to be. And that would be another benefit, I guess, to moving the bike path to the south. You don't have to design that to be crossed by a tractor. It looked like in a few places in the drawings, Faber Road was called Sunnyview Road, so I think just, taking care of that.
Maybe they have naming rights.
They're for sale.
The wetland delineation from last October is referenced in the drawing set. If we could get a copy of that, just to have it in our records, that would be great. One thing with the landscaping plan, it looked like they were basing the trees along the street right away along our zoning guidelines for street frontage. What we would actually look at there is in our subdivision ordinance for street trees. I think it's going to end up being about the same as what you have. It's just a slightly different formula. I think the more important thing is we just want to make sure the village forester signs off on anything that's going to be going into the right of way. Kind of the standard reminder about sign permits. I think we still need to get a photometric plan to sign off on. And as far as the certified survey map, I didn't have any concerns or conditions on that, other than just noting there would have to be a subsequent one when we finalize the road right away. So Josh, I think, probably has the more in-depth comments this time around.
I have some comments. I'm not going to go through all of our comments because a lot of them, as Adam and I would probably agree, are easily kind of dealt with as they get into more final design on all of this. It is a little bit more of a lengthy design because we have to remember that, this is really going to be a dedicated public road at the end of the day. So, you guys are getting infrastructure as part of this. So I'm going to step through just kind of the higher points and discuss some of them. We're under continuing conversations with this group, and we're working together to try to figure out kind of the best solutions for the site. So we mentioned the certified survey map, and it was great to see that they dedicated on their certified survey map an additional 20 feet along N, which the county really wanted to, if that roadway ever has to expand to be a major arterial to the north. So that was shown. Thank you for that. And then we look at the road itself. We were asking for about 70 feet of right-of-way there, and that's what they're providing as they come in. That matches what's at Commerce Park as it comes in on that roadway. We talked a little bit about infrastructure. They're putting infrastructure in along the roadway, but their plans currently today don't show how the infrastructure is going to connect up to the roadway. So there's still a piece of this plan that we're working with staff here and with their staff and their team to figure out. So sewer and water goes along their entire Faber Road as they show it on the plan, but the connection on N is still trying to be figured out on how that is all going to take place, both sewer and water. And that also, some of that could also potentially get looped back in through the Amazon site too, that was planned on before. There's actually, as part of this, even potentially there's a chance that maybe Amazon could connect into this by gravity in a different fashion. And this could serve the new parcel to the west in a different fashion too. So there's some details that we're working on. There's solutions in a variety of different ways. So you'll continue to probably hear we'll talk about that. Getting the grading wise, when you look at the overall grading of the site, there's a couple things to note, and I'm sure they're going to do is, there's a little grading to the north on the private property, to the south into the larger site. There's a potential for a retaining wall between the two parcels, and we've talked to them, and I know they will, go back to the owner to the south and see if we can kind of remove that retaining wall so that the two gradings match. You can imagine one's higher than the other, and why don't we just try to blend both sites, I think that would be in everybody's best interest, but those are conversations that still need to be had between the two property owners. The sidewalk, so we talked a little bit about the multi-use path, and Aaron brought it up. They were showing the multi-use path on the north side of the roadway. We were suggesting maybe if you could remove the retaining wall, get it on the south side away from all the driveway access points that you'd have to cross. There's a lot of trucks coming in and out of this site. We thought it would also potentially be good to have a sidewalk or have some connectivity into their site, but through more conversations with the development team, it's not their standard to have a lot of sidewalks throughout their sites. They have large vehicles coming in through those center portions, going into the docks. people that are parking into their parking lots are walking along the parking lots, then entering the building. There's not a lot of other circulation, just as a walking standpoint on their site, except for where the ADA access is. So as a group, our discussion was to consider not putting a private sidewalk, not putting a public sidewalk on the right way, and just having that 10-foot multi-use path. And if we can shift that to the south, so it's away from, you know, the 6 or 7 driveway entrances that they have on the north, there really would be no reason that anyone would have to cross another access point if it was just somebody out for, you know, recreation onto that path. The idea was this path would then connect along N, like we discussed before, and go all the way back down into the village as part of it. So my comments might suggest a sidewalk, but I would say we would strike that at this point and go with this option unless the commission feels differently. Driveway access points. So they have several driveway access points along their site. Some are for vehicle access and some are for truck access. You know, when you look back at what the village prefers, it would be a 24-foot access point at the right-of-way. The vehicle access points for passenger vehicles are at around 30, and the trucks are at 45. A lot smoother for the trucks to get in and out, a little bit wider. We were suggesting, as part of this, could we go back to more of the standard for the vehicles entering the site? Could those be more at the 24-foot wide so we don't have large openings? And then could we come up with a concession between that 45, you know, to 24, where we could get these trucks to work? We were suggesting in conversations with them, try to make it 30 at that right-of-way point. Maybe a little narrower than what they're proposing, but getting closer to what we'd see in other places in the village. So just something to consider. We talked about the retaining wall, talked about the bike path. I'm just kind of going down my highlighted things here. Traffic impact analysis. We're still waiting on that. They're close to submitting kind of their preliminary findings on that as part of that analysis. We have met several times with the county to discuss it. We sent emails back and forth. They've given us all of their, you know, counts to look at. They've given us kind of their metrics on how they're going to set the TIA up. We've looked at that as the village and also the county, and have kind of pushed that through back to them. So we anticipate what we get back will be what we're expecting, and that will ultimately set the improvements for the connection to N. So it will set, you know, do they need a specific left turn bay in if you're heading from the south, you know, or do they need something from the north, a right turn bay in? That will kind of flesh all of that out. And again, the county really has the jurisdiction there to require those improvements. The village has the ability to grant the access as part of that. You know, and looking at the design, the vertical and crest curves within the roadway, it's a site distance. You can see we are assuming that this will be a 25-mile-an-hour roadway. We talked to JJ a little bit about that. If somebody feels differently, we should discuss that tonight. Otherwise, it was going to be posted at 25. Allowed for parking on either side. It's going to be wide enough. That's kind of the default that was set. We talked a little bit about, and I don't think we've talked to the development team about this yet, and it has to do with grading. At the end of Faber Road, as you come to the west, there's about a 12-foot cut there of where the road ends and where we kind of almost run into the adjacent property. So blending into that in the adjacent property, when I say west, it used to be by Beacon, I believe maybe the Houstons own it now. You know, there's going to have to be substantial grading on that end. We just asked, you know, is there any chance to be able to pick that up a little bit on that end, because it tends to be a steep kind of roll around as part of that. Just something to look at. You know, I know there's a lot of grading that has to be mass balanced, and even if the two sites are working together, there'll be some additional grading that has to happen. So some of those details will need to be worked out as part of the roadway. The ponds. If you could go back to that, if you could just pull up the ponds again briefly, Chelsea, I'd appreciate that. So is there 4 ponds? Adam, do I have that right? Is there 4 separate ponds on the site? I think that's right.
Yeah, yes, the answer is 4, because there's an optional pond up at the north side of Faber, depending on the interactions with the neighbor. So 4 traditional ponds that you'd see with water in the bottom and 1 giant infiltration basin.
Sure. So you can see those ponds. I mean, right now on, where they're proposing these two buildings, at least what's in this initial plan set, is there was an easement that would be where facility 2 is there, so the far right side of that facility where the drive lane is, and the rest of the green spaces, there was going to be an easement that took, infrastructure pipes from our road down to these ponds, basically the village's easement. I don't know if anybody's ever really discussed what the ownership between some of these ponds would be, but we kind of pitched something in these comments, and that would be, we don't really need an easement there, and you guys can keep and maintain those ponds to the back because the majority of your infrastructure is flowing to them with just a maintenance agreement in place. And if you want, we could take an outlot of that other pond. If you did want to keep one of, out pond 1 closer to the road, the majority of the road kind of comes to that one. Or you could kind of keep them all. But we were proposing that if you were looking for one, because we do need some storage just for our road, pond 1 would be the best as far as a public standpoint. Easy to get to, you wouldn't have to go across into the property, easy to maintain, just something to consider as part of what we thought as conditions. Talk a little bit about fire hydrant spacing in here and just trying to understand as they get further into detail the fire requirements around their buildings and making sure that the fire hydrants are spaced. We'd like to see them no farther than 300 feet apart if we could, and we'd also like to see some of the truck, just the truck templates that we can send you, Adam, and you know all about those.
Yep.
So, again, pretty minor comments, but I know the fire department would want us to ask those specific pieces. I think I covered the rest of that. Sorry, I'm just trying to hit the high points. Lighting on the roadway, and JJ, I don't know if you and I have even talked about this, but as part of the development team and putting that roadway in, there's going to need to be lighting along the roadway to some degree, and that will be more of a coordination effort between the village, the developer, and Alliant at that point, just to make sure that we have some street lighting that goes out to there as part of that piece. Stormwater management, I'll wrap up with that. First I'll talk about lighting is we still need to see lighting for the overall piece of it in photometrics. It's a site out in a big space. I don't think there's going to be any problem hitting the photometrics out on here and not overlighting it, but trying to be more of a dark kind of sky kind of lighting thing. And then the stormwater management comments, I'm just going to go over what's required, just kind of to have it in this letter, just because I know the township has asked a lot about it, adjacent property owners. What's required as part of this review, both by the village, Dane County, and the state of Wisconsin, is sediment control practices must provide result 80% of total suspended solids and 54% of total phosphorus needs to be captured in these facilities. Oil and grease practices there needs to be treatment as part of this up to the ½ inch of runoff. They need to control the rate of the stormwater, so the rate control practices need to provide and maintain pre-development peaks, runoff rates from the 1, the 2, the 10, 100, and 200-year storms. So the 200 was a little bit newer over the last year that Dane County put in for 24-hour design events. And I know that was a big thing for the town and the drainage district and the landowner to the north, and that is being met within the facilities that they have designed. And then they talk about infiltration and the large infiltration basin that's there, and they have to infiltrate the runoff volume so that the post-development infiltration volume at the site is at least 90% of the pre-develop. So 90% of that has to get back in as part of that, and that is achieved also. So they did a good job on the stormwater side of it, and it looks to be within order. That's all I have. There's plenty more in the letter, but again, a lot of the rest is pretty minor.
Engineering geeking out there, that's what that is. Which is what we need, that's all right. All right, with that, then I'll turn it over to the commission members for any questions for either Zilber or staff or comments.
John, I got a question.
Go for it.
I got two. You said the road's being dedicated, correct? So that, just to confirm that. So the difference between the multi-use path and the sidewalk, who maintains the different versions?
So all of the right-of-way, the 70 feet of right-of-way that you'd have there, you're going to have a road in there, and you're going to have a multi-use path on one side. We were debating before, did you need the multi-use path and a sidewalk? Because there's a lot of places in the community.
It was an and, not an order. Okay.
Yeah.
So the multi-use path then
That
is
will-
maintained by who? JJ.
It's village.
And then with both of the big projects going on up there, I remember conversations around the lift station. So are we still, you talked about connections to the street for the sewer. Do we still doing the lift station? Where's that going in? Do we have a timeline for that?
Okay, so that is a good question. I maybe didn't circle back from our last meeting on that. They will require a lift station as part of their development to get that sanitary sewer back up over the hill and back down to the gravity system that flows by gravity. We were talking about, well, let's put in a very large lift station, serve other parcels around them, which we could do there, but we can't get too far north without going fairly deep at their site. So when I say fairly deep, 40-plus feet to get across potentially the creek someday and serve 200 or 300 acres to the north, if that were the plan at some point someday. So instead, we're proposing that they set up what would be a lift station, a pump station there, but have it so that it could potentially just go offline someday. They'll run everything into it, and then someday, if there is development further to the north and a regional station is put in, so this station would be smaller today. It could be a permanent one, but if development took place further to the north and the next landowner wanted to develop, we want to get it closer to the creek, further down the hill. That could go online, and this would just drain by gravity to it, because all of it's draining by gravity to this big wet well and getting pumped. It would still then, we'd take the pumps out offline and just drain it by gravity down to the regional and connect back to where they're going to connect in their force main now. So we're going to oversize the force main so that we can connect into that force main right at Faber Road. And we're not going to put any new infrastructure. We're going to build the infrastructure so that it's ready, but it's not going to serve everything. It could serve their site. It could serve the far site to the west. And there is a potential that it could serve Amazon too, which could eliminate some of Amazon's infrastructure that they would need. That still has to be vetted between all the sites.
So what property is that still, that's going to go on this property?
It will.
This lift station?
It would probably go right down near the intersection of where this is going to connect.
Okay.
Yep.
But that's not represented right now with a square or any?
It's not.
We don't have a
it's-
pin, it doesn't,
it's
there's no way to
not-
visualize it right now?
It's not pinpointed somewhere specifically on there as part of the submittals, no.
Okay, thanks.
That's discussed in some of the comments too.
All right. Other questions or comments from commission members? I think it's an exciting project. It brings some more jobs to the area and some different industries, so that's very neat. And as well as connecting to some of the another parcel within that area as well with Faber Road. So it's very exciting to see you guys moving through the process here. So with that, then, this is to discuss and consider for the PIP.
I'm on a roll today.
You
so
are
I'll
on a
just,
roll.
continue on, make a motion to approve the application from the Property Group for approval of a precise implementation plan for an approximately 70-acre light industrial development on parcels 0811-332-8501-1, number 0811-332-8072-1, also 0811-321-8004-1, and 0811-332-8182-1 at 4953 County Highway and with staff conditions.
I appreciate you reading all the numbers, and I'll just say second.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you,
I
Alex.
was hoping she could read the numbers again.
Only faster, right?
You have a chance to read them, Troy, in item 10.
All right. With that, then, any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Next then is the certified survey map, which Chad had mentioned to carve out that spot, that homeowner. Any comments on that, Aaron?
I didn't have any, just again, we'll see another one when they dedicate the right of way and potentially the lift station site, things like that.
Nothing from you?
Brandon, had anything?
No, just like we pointed out, they have that 20 feet extra that was there, which is what we were anticipating, which looked good.
I did just have the bike path will then run in the front of that property in the right-of-way?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then, is there any screening required between that property and residential? Or is it the building's far enough away that there isn't screening,
I think it's,
landscape screening
I
between?
think it's mainly that's just a pond you'd see and the road, I think, at this point. The rest of the development is
Farther
further
away,
back.
yeah.
You do have some screening around the parcel at the end of Faber Road still that you show, right? Like a berming or something in there.
Yeah, reforest area, I think it was called, or something like that.
Is that what it was?
I think that's what it said on the landscaping.
The certified map is attached, right? That's the file called csm.pdf, is that it? Does it matter that it has the Sunnyview Road?
So it's
How do we-
interesting enough, it's what it's legally called in a lot of the documents.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the title, it's dedicated to Sunnyview Road, but every planning document seems to have Favorview Road. So
Yep.
we're glad to change it to whatever people feel fit. We can do that for you.
I just want to make sure that we're approving the official document and there's a conflict or whatever. We don't need to address it as a recommendation, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I-
it's easy to change the name of a road,
Yeah.
so, after it's dedicated.
I'm assuming the surveyor picked that because that's what he found when he started to research the documents. That's that's the name he would have found on there. I ran into that too when I was looking at it.
So it's probably an opportunity to fix it when we get it dedicated to something.
Whatever. Yep.
Okay.
All right, one more time. I'll make a motion to approve the application from Silver Property Group for approval of a certified survey map to consolidate parcels 0811-332-8501-1 and 0811-332-8072-1, 0811-321-8004-1, and also parcel 0811-332-8182-1 at 4953 County Highway N into two parcels, then we won't have to read that many numbers off again.
That is correct.
With, are there no staff conditions on this? Okay, thank you.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Heidi. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody opposed? Anyone abstain? Motion carries. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Another exciting step.
Aaron or Matt, future agenda items?
There's a few that I know about. The rugby club is looking at doing some lighting at one of their fields. That would need a site plan amendment. Heyday would like to come back and present a revised concept for their project over by the schools on BB. And looks like we'll have a rezoning application for that Houston property to the west of DeZola.
All right. Anything from commission members?
I just saw Aaron, they presented the Housing Task Force report, which I think was excellent, and there may be something that at least gets distributed to the commission to read, or I don't know if you want to do a highlights of it at some point.
Yeah, we'll probably have the board approve it first and then we can go over it. And there'll definitely be some action steps for this committee to look at.
All right.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, Heidi. Then moving on to item 12.
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Fred.
Second.
Thanks, Troy. Non-debatable. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Sure, he takes the easy motion.
Yeah.